We are Rogue Media Sports.
Dogs are an important part of our lives. That means protecting them from parasites. Ask your vet about NexGard Plus, Afoxolaner, Moxidectin, and Pyrantel chewable tablets. NexGard Plus chews provide one-and-done monthly protection against fleas, ticks, heartworm disease, roundworms, and hookworms. Plus, they're delicious and easy to give. Use with caution in dogs with a history of seizures or neurologic disorders. Dogs should be tested for existing heartworm infection prior to starting a preventive. Ask about NexGard Plus chews.
Jake from State Farm here, hanging out with Mel's Mow and Grow. Mel chose State Farm for small business insurance because his local agent is a small business owner too. So she knew how to help him personalize his policies. And now, he's rolling in the green. Like a good neighbor? Guys, I'm trying to do the line.
Oh, sorry, Jake.
It's all good. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there. Talk to an agent today.
It is the Doomsday Podcast Holiday Edition. And Ed, I dabbled with the idea after this 4034. Oh, there you are with that beautiful, beautiful artwork behind you. I thought about the idea, well, should we wait, do it on Christmas and not do it on Christmas Eve? And then I noticed, Ed, throughout the game, our people are out there. What are they going to say? And some people had gone to Christmas Eve service and missed some of the game. And they said, can't wait to see what you guys. So I thought, Ed, we've got to do our thing and keep to our usual schedule. Now, it may be a bit abbreviated, but we'll have stretch plays. We'll do the whole thing. And
stretch plays is never abbreviated in my experience.
Tonight, by our standards, it was somewhat abbreviated.
Okay.
And yeah, you're usually not a part of it. Tonight, you got to dabble in it a little bit, eavesdrop on it. Okay, Ed, we've both come from the stadium, and we spent all our time out there. We worked the post game. There you were, though. And by the way, I got some really cool stuff from Dante Fowler Jr., and I'll share that. And I spent a lot of time with Jerry, and we'll probably be able to let people listen to a little bit of Jerry. But let's wish everybody a Merry Christmas for sure to start off the top. But now, Ed, I saw you kind of jumping in there with your whole ESPN crew, and I could tell, he must be doing a little feature on T.Y. Hilton. That was an amazing, game-changing play, 3rd and 30. It made me think of the time, was it Donovan McNabb converted on 3rd and 26?
I think it was 4th and 26 in a playoff game against Green Bay.
Okay.
And I was wondering if McCarthy was the coach of that team or if it was still Mike Holmgren.
Well, that's a good one. I think it might have been McCarthy by then, but that's a good one. That's hard to know for sure. I think Holmgren would have already been at Seattle by then, but I remembered that play. But 3rd and 30. In fact, when you're getting sacked again, and it was like 2nd and 21, then it's like 3rd and 30. It almost looks comical on the scoreboard, and so there's a real there's no way they're going to get this that sets in. And lo and behold, they not only get it, but they get it with this brand new player they've brought in after we spent all our lives on OBJ, which tonight
Jerry finally admitting it's come to an end.
Jerry saying
we're going to go with this guy who's averaging 50 yards a catch. We don't have a spot on the roster anymore for Odell Beckham Jr.
Yeah, tonight was the first time he finally let the thing go. He's not for the future, not dismissing it for the future, but this season,
right? That
ship has sailed. Ed, you were getting to hear from T.Y. Hilton afterwards. Put this one in perspective. This was a phenomenal play, and it changed the game. Who knows? Maybe it changed the season.
Yeah, I spent a lot of time at the Star. We did 2 days of coverage on ESPN this week, and one of the first guys we talked to was T.Y. Hilton, and I was really interested in him. And my producer Sean Fitzgerald just kind of didn't think he wasn't feeling it with T.Y. Hilton. Didn't think he was a big enough acquisition to do a story. But I worked him into my pregame presentations across all our platforms, say on Sunday Countdown, on SportsCenter, as a guy who could maybe create some new opportunities, maybe change the equation a little bit for the Cowboys passing game. Get these guys, allow these guys to create some separation, have better matchups, or maybe he could win his in certain situations. And as the game was playing out, I was a little annoyed that, Mike McCarthy, to his credit, and I think the players appreciate that he has this long acclimation process, guys coming back from injury, new players coming in. He doesn't hurry getting them on the field. It takes a while. He wants to make sure they're in shape and they're not going to get hurt. And there's probably a lot of logic behind all that. But I'm like, why is this guy not playing? Why is he not getting enough opportunities? Why is he not out there instead of Noah Brown, for example? And then he makes the fourth down, play, draws a penalty on fourth down. That leads to a touchdown. But this play we're talking about, 3rd and 30. I mean, the Eagles at the time are inching closer to clinching the division title on the Cowboys field. They're leading Dallas by a touchdown in the fourth quarter. The consecutive sacks of Dak Prescott left them at 3rd and 30 and needing one of the biggest plays of Dak's career. And it comes from the most unlikely of sources, a veteran receiver just signed. It wasn't Odell Beckham Jr., but 33-year-old T.Y. Hilton. Now, here's the most amazing part of the whole thing. That marked, get this is going to blow your mind. That's the 4th time in 272 chances that an NFL team has converted 3rd and 30 or longer since 2000. That's the 4th time in 22 years that a team has converted 3rd and 30 or longer. And the Cowboys do it with a guy who 2 weeks ago was not on the team. It's only the second ball Dak's thrown him, and it's the first one he's caught, and it leads a few plays later to CeeDee Lamb's second touchdown to tie the game, and the Cowboys ultimately come back and win it.
That's why we have you, Ed, for insight and perspective like that. The 4th time, oh my gosh, in how many years? Did you say 30?
22 years since the year 2000.
Okay, in the last 22 years.
That play is the 4th one in 272 opportunities that teams across the NFL have had on 3rd and 30 or worse.
Yeah.
That's the 4th one to be converted.
What kind of cracked me up is hearing T.Y. Hilton. First of all, he seems to have a little bit of a chip on his shoulder, like, I'm 33. I can still get this done. I'm still fast. And on that play, he looked plenty fast enough.
Well, he told us all week. He said, hey, if you think I can't run, if you think you're going to get in my face and you're going to play press man and not get run by, you're crazy. And that's essentially what he said after the game. Mm-hmm. I've been saying this all week. I've warned the Eagles and future opponents that if they don't think I can get vertical, that's how he made his mark in the NFL,
And on a major 4th down play, he drew a penalty, and that was a great route. He got out of the route so fast, he got held, and while I think Dak still had the ball, and that call was made. That ended up that was a big play because it
led to a touchdown.
That was 4th and 8, I think it was. And I like the part where he said that he thinks Slay got caught peeking in the backfield. Like, why are you peeking on the backfield on 3rd and 30? Doesn't that seem weird? That's a strange time to get caught peeking in the backfield.
And to me, the amazing thing is on the 2 plays that he was involved in that led to, prolonged touchdown drives for the Cowboys in dire situations. Both times he's up against their best corner. He's up against Darius Slay, and he wins both times.
All right. It is the Doomsday Podcast. Frito, please play the music. All right. Ed and I both at the game. Frito has made his way to the Frito Nation studios. He got to be with some family tonight, and it was great to hear how the Friedman family was doing on this beautiful Christmas Eve. Ed and we just had a big time together out there. Ed, I don't know if you I didn't see you at halftime, I don't think. They had a Cowboys cheesesteak area, Did you partake in that, or were you too healthy for that? It was a pretty. Yeah. Okay.
I was having a hard time.
Night.
I was having a hard time deciding how to count my meals today because I didn't really get one before I left. I had an English muffin on the way to the stadium with a cup of coffee. Didn't know if that counted as a meal. And then after I did my television this morning pregame and met with Nick Sirianni on the field as he got off the bus, I went up and I had Jerry had some very nice tomahawk steaks, thinly sliced, and that was outstanding. So I had that at lunchtime, and I didn't know if I had a cheesesteak, as alluring as it was like that going to count as my third meal, and then I wouldn't get anything tonight. So I let it go.
Okay, I don't let anything go in any kind of free meal situations like that. I'm pretty active, and they had what I like too. They said they had a beef empanada and a lobster empanada. And neither one, they looked the same, so you had to just try to guess. And so I was just grabbing any empanada I could. Now, Ed, it'll be interesting, and you and I can put this thing in perspective. 40-34 win for the Cowboys. And before we go on, Ed, what a great time of the year to recognize our presenting sponsor, none other than Marable Homes and marablehomes.com. And Blake Marable and Ed, and I'd like to take credit for this. I think it's just Blake continues to do unbelievable work. He's now got houses going up in Preston Hollow. He's got homes he's doing on Cedar Creek Lake, which I grew up down there. Okay. Now there are some like gorgeous homes going in. Back when I was growing up, there were not gorgeous homes there. Blake is sort of responsible for some of that starting to happen. And even certain quarterbacks who used to play for the Cowboys, I think, have some places there on that lake. And so, Ed, Marable Homes, great sponsor, and it's custom homes, and they have a relationship with their people for life. And that's why they do your one home. And if you want to go to another home, they'll do that one. And people stay with them for years and years. So Merry Christmas to Marable Homes. That's Marable. And in fact, in Lake Highlands, where I'm from, I was at some gathering the other night, and people were talking about it. Oh, did you see that house that Blake Marable's doing? So that was a topic of conversation. Love our association with Marable Homes. All right, Ed, the Cowboys win this thing 40-34. They trailed during portions of this game at halftime. They were kind of playing from behind. This was I mean, you go a couple of different ways with this thing. Let's start with where we always like to start, the quarterback. Ed, I was thinking about you. I knew you were sitting over there on the second row tonight in the press box, and I was up on the third row. And I thought, oh my gosh, this guy starts the game basically with he's just trying to throw a little dump off screen pass or whatever, and it just gets picked off by Josh Sweat for the Eagles for a pick six. Cowboys were down 10-0 in a hurry. Ed, I mean, this is as you noted on Twitter, fifth game in a row with an interception. He hasn't done that in his career. What were you thinking when you saw that pick six by Dak?
Well, I mean, the talk, there's been a lot of conversation around Dak Prescott the last few weeks about his interception woes. They've been very uncharacteristic of this quarterback who, throughout his 7 seasons, I think has demonstrated that he doesn't put the ball at risk very often. He values the football. He knows how good their defense is or was, and doesn't want to put them on short fields. And then for him to end last week's game on a pick six that wasn't his fault, the ball bouncing off Noah Brown in overtime, getting picked, and that being the last play of a loss. And then to start the Philadelphia game on the very first possession, he does it again. And this time it is the quarterback's fault entirely. And the great thing about Dak is how he handles it. I mean, he didn't flinch, as Mike McCarthy said after the game. Hey, Dak Prescott eats adversity for lunch, and to his credit, when Dak Prescott came into the post-game press conference room, without anybody saying anything to him, he said, let's talk about the interception. And as he did that, he says, I'm trying to get this guy down before he scores a touchdown. And he says, as I'm trying to do that, I'm thinking to myself, is this really happening again? and I was surprised because, like I said, he doesn't usually throw a lot of interceptions. I was surprised when I checked with our research people. That's the 8th pick six that he's had in his career already. He's only in his 7th season. 8 pick sixes seemed like a lot to me for a guy who hadn't thrown that many interceptions. But yeah, that was very unfortunate. But one of many adversities they had to overcome. That was, they overcame 10-point deficits twice in the game. But I mean, overall, I think he played pretty well. He got sacked 6 times, which is alarming. The Eagles do lead the NFL in sacks and interceptions, so he's up against a good defense. But 6 sacks, the Eagles have had 6 or more sacks 4 games in a row. That's historic. Nobody's ever done that before. So for the Cowboys to win despite that, for Dak Prescott to have his first 300-yard passing game of the season against the number 1 ranked pass defense in the NFL, and like I said, a defense that leads the NFL in interceptions and sacks, I think is pretty remarkable and a testament to his ability to overcome adversity, especially when he creates the adversity.
Yeah, I think that last part was kind of important, and he is now, Ed. While we praise him in a sense, we do have to mention that there was some strange decision making by him in that final couple of minutes.
And the head coach.
And the head coach. But one was you have, and Gardner Minshew certainly had plenty of time to come down the field, and he almost got it done. But Dak, who made some plays with his legs in this game, and really did well in that, and I think that helped the Cowboys in a big way, had the ability to get, to stay in bounds on a run, and he went ahead and went out of bounds. Now, again, on that one, he may have thought it was the 2-minute drill, 2-minute, he
thought they were inside the 2-minute warning by the time he finished the play. And he said after the game, maybe in the future, I need to make sure I look up at the clock and confirm that what I felt at the time that had lapsed during the play was in fact correct, and I should step out of bounds or I should stay in the field of play and consume as much time as possible.
And then he took a sack. He came back and he took a sack there
on first down.
Yeah. To make
where again, it seemed like he could throw the ball away, and they were at that point. The 2-minute warning was going to hit, and he could have. There was no consequence for an incompletion in that situation. If you take the sack and the clock's going to run, that's a different thing. But that's not what happened.
No, there were some awareness issues with the quarterback there. Cowboys win this thing though, 40-34. And Ed, one of the interesting things, you and I we've been around Jerry forever, and so we sort of know, how to maybe interpret some of his actions after a game. One of the things, and I was there for his whole post game, that was kind of interesting that he kept coming back to is, I feel way better standing here after this win than I ever thought I would. And it was just, it exceeded the win, exceeded his expectations. So I kind of pressed him on that. I was like, well, why is that? Why did this performance, change your mindset and make you think so much more than you thought you could be thinking after this game? And Ed, some of what we've already mentioned, it was getting down 10-0. It was coming back, being down, 34-27, finding a way to keep fighting back in the game, and the adversity that they overcame, even though the Eagles had a lot of success on offense, it really seemed to impact him. And he thought, Ed, even though they didn't have Jalen Hurts, of course, he said to do this against what I think is one of the best teams in the NFL meant something. Ed, you've been around Jerry forever, but it was kind of interesting for Jerry to have that kind of feeling about the game. And I think especially coming off the the loss to Jacksonville, which they squandered a 17-point lead in that game. I think Jerry viewed this as a big pick-me-up, and I think he's looking to this thing to give them quite a bounce moving forward.
Well, when they lost last week, one of the first things Dak Prescott said after the game was, we need to focus on creating postseason momentum and real postseason momentum by winning tough games, and that's what this was. I mean, can you imagine how the Cowboys would have felt about themselves blowing the 17-point lead, the pick six in overtime, losing at Jacksonville last week, and then they come at home as, the reigning division champions. They lose the NFC East title. Philadelphia beats them on their own field with the backup quarterback. I mean, how would the Cowboys have felt about themselves and been perceived around the football world had they allowed that to happen? And it was close to happening. I mean, they're fortunate that they didn't play Jalen Hurts. This was the first time all year they played a team with a backup quarterback, and they needed it. And next week they get to play another one on a short week. They go to Tennessee. They're going to play Malik Willis, the starting quarterback now for the Titans. But I think that's what he was talking about. We saw last year at the end of the season against Philadelphia, Mike McCarthy tried to manufacture playoff momentum because the Eagles sat 15 starters that final week of the regular season. McCarthy played all of his guys. Dak Prescott played the whole game. They scored 56 points. They thought they were creating something that was going to be sustainable in the playoffs. And it wasn't. They were the only, division winner not to advance to the second round. They got beat by the 49ers. So then what they did today was real and organic in terms of having to fight it out, and confront adversity, sometimes of their own making, sometimes not. And beat a very good football team. I think that was an overriding point with Jerry to me was, his prevailing thought was, hey, this Eagles team was better than I thought they were. Even without Jalen Hurts, they were overall a better team than I thought they were. I mean, they're 13-1 when they come here. And so the Cowboys are only one of two teams to beat them. The Cowboys have played great at home. Unfortunately for them, they're probably not going to play any postseason games at home. They're going to have to go on the road. The game in Jacksonville probably all but clinched that inevitability. Although Dak was great after the game today. He said, hey, we kept ourselves alive. We know our hopes are faint, but if the Eagles go and lose a game or two for us, hell yeah, we're going to win the division.
Said they'll definitely take that. All right, Ed, we'll have some thoughts on the Cowboys defense and some of the good things and the bad things, but we want to hear from our resident scout and coach, Glenn Stretch Smith. And you'd have to think that even though he's one of the harshest graders in the NFL, that on this Christmas Eve, that he'll have the holiday spirit and he'll hand out some winning grades. It is time for Stretch Plays with former Cowboys scout and coach Glenn Stretch Smith, handing out the grades on a Christmas Eve. Merry Christmas to you, Stretch, and to all a good night. Now, Stretch, I'm just sort of curious, your initial thoughts on, is this because they beat the Eagles with Gardner Minshew, who, by the way, put up great numbers and played really well throughout much of this game. Do you, especially in the aftermath of what happened against Jacksonville, does this win give you more confidence in the Cowboys, or do you still feel pretty much the same as you did coming into this game?
I don't know that it gives me more confidence. I would say that I like the fact that the Dallas secondary is having to play some guys that I think need playing time. I think playing Nashawn Wright, I think playing, getting Curse more involved. I think Bland doing what he's doing, I think it helps the secondary. And so I think when you can clear some of that up, obviously it was a bust when they ran the play action and got Smith over the top when they were running kind of a submarine pass look, and Diggs jumped the top. Thought he was jumping the tight end on the submarine flat, and they went over the top of him to Smith. I think all of those things that you can teach and get better at from a secondary standpoint help you. I think Diggs playing on the other side where he normally plays heavy on the defensive right, playing him some on the left. I think all that experience helps you. But I do think that when you look at the game and you look at Gardner Minshew has played a lot of NFL, not a lot, but he's played in the NFL. He understands that offense pretty well. It's a well schemed offense. They do a good job with how they get their matchups. And so I thought I thought that aspect of being able to get those secondary guys some reps helps the Cowboys. I never diminish when you win in the NFL. So, I mean, we know how hard that is to do. And so, and I'm saying everybody that's listening to this knows how hard it is to do when you think about, almost losing to Houston, losing to Jacksonville. So a win is a good win. The fact that it came when it did, the fact that you got some guys on the offense, more exposure. I think, it's very interesting seeing Tyron play on the right side. I think all of those things are good, and I think that will definitely help the Cowboys moving forward. As far as this game, I do still have some concerns, Matt, on both sides of the football.
All right, let's start working through it because people always want to see how you grade this thing out. Stretch, one of the issues over the past few games has been the lack of pressure. And that has been really the calling card on this defense, especially with Micah Parsons. And late, they did get pressure. And I believe that was Dante Fowler who got there first to really force that tough kind of desperation throw to end the game from Gardner Minshew. But what are you making of this pass rush? And how much of this is simply scheming it up, the ball coming out quickly from these offenses? Like what's going on with the Cowboys not really getting home on the pass rush from what you're seeing? Because obviously we do have to credit Eagles have a highly regarded O-line, and so that could have something to do with it too.
No question. They're well put together up front. I mean, this is a good offensive line, and so I think that's part of it. I think the other part of it is I do think that these two teams, in theory, anticipate seeing each other again in the playoffs. I think you saw some vanilla things from the Cowboys defense. I think you saw some vanilla things from the Eagles defense. I'm not real sure they wanted to show a lot of what they would really want to do. If they get matched up in a winner-take-all situation, Matt. But both these lines, both the Cowboys and Eagles offensive line, both the Cowboys and Eagles defensive line, good offensive lines, and that's why they're in defensive lines, and that's why they're where they're at. So I think that when you look at it specifically, again, secondary-wise, I gave the secondary a B. I think they've got to get some things cleaned up. I think they've got to be more sound in what they're doing, Matt. I do think that this team desperately misses Van Der Esch. He is a between the tackles, downhill, gap assignment, gap solid football player. And I think they miss him. But what really I think hurts the Cowboys is not being able to line up Armstrong and Lawrence as those bookend guys, and then being able to get up the field and allow Parsons kind of the free range to come from wherever he comes from. You see tonight he was coming from the right side, the left side. They would go to chip him. He would want to make a hard inside move, and that would allow Minshew to get outside the pocket. That's only going to hurt them if they come back and they have Hurts, obviously, with his ability to do things with his legs. So defensively, I'm concerned about the fact that they're not getting the pressure with four like they were getting because they're not really confident with what they're doing in the secondary, obviously missing Brown and Lewis and having the I think the confidence taken away from Joseph. So I do think you're going to have I think you're going to have some things that the Dallas defense is going to have to work on, versus Tennessee Thursday night, and obviously the final game versus Washington. Overall, defensively, I really thought it was about a C effort. I like Barr. I like Clark. They're just not as physical as Van Der Esch, and I think that hurt them versus the run. So defensively, this team's got to get back to having the confidence of getting there with 4 down and being able to, have the confidence when they do blitz to know that they're going to be sound and not just turn somebody free in the secondary.
All right, and Stretch, we should mention in particular the Eagles had a couple of issues in the run game. The Cowboys took advantage with takeaways there. Jaron Kearse made a great play on the ball for that first interception, setting up a Cowboy score. I thought that was big early in the game. And then Bland with another huge play. That's 5 interceptions for a rookie drafted in the 5th round, Stretch. And he, like you said, these guys are going to make some mistakes, but the fact that he's making huge game-changing plays, a 5th round pick rookie, I mean, think about that, Stretch. You really can't have Kelvin Joseph on the field right now, a 2nd round pick in this from a couple of years ago, and Deron Bland comes in as a rookie 5th round pick, and he makes big plays.
Yeah, and I mean, I feel the same way about Nahshon Wright. I mean, I thought he made some nice plays too. So absolutely, I mean, they're going to have to put out there who they're comfortable putting out there, and I think I'll go back to what I've said earlier, getting those guys that experience and those live game looks to me is very valuable, and it's going to be valuable as this team goes into the playoffs. I can't emphasize this enough. My concern is the pressure or lack of that they're getting with those 4 down that they were getting really the first 12 games of the season.
All right, Stretch, let's look at the offensive side. And people always are interested to hear kind of your breakdown of Dak. And you've been, you're very honest about Dak. It's sometimes pretty tough on him, but I like the balanced approach. Dak had some great numbers. I mean, he really did. He had a mind-numbing interception, and this game could have gotten away from him early. They're down 10-0. And he gives up a pick 6 where he doesn't get the ball out there. And then Stretch in particular, though, and we'll talk about some of the good as well, but the late game decision making, he actually made some really good plays with his legs. Right around the 2-minute drill, he does not stay in bounds when he needed to stay in bounds. And then, of course, he took a bad sack that put him back in a 2nd and 14. There was some sort of awareness issues, I would call them, late in that game that really left the Eagles with quite a bit of a time, and the Cowboys were fortunate to overcome that.
Yeah, I instinctively, it's starting to concern me with what he's doing when he's doing it. And I'm saying, I understand he kind of got out of the pocket right there and he thought he was going to get the 2-minute warning, got out of bounds at 2:01. But you got to know in your mind at 2:01, regardless of what the next play is, regardless of what it is, inbounds, out of bounds, incomplete pass, whatever it is, you're going to get the 2-minute warning. So to take a sack in that situation, that's what really did. It just one of those things that just you shake your head and you think, what was he thinking there? No question, he makes some good throws. I mean, there's no question he does some things that are really good in the passing game, and then he'll do some things to me that, again, leave you wondering instinctively, what is he feeling? Does he not feel the rush? I used to know a guy that could kind of, and I'm saying him, that could kind of feel that rush off the edge. He knew when to get rid of the football. He kind of had a clock in his mind. Now there are times that he'll just bail out of it, and there's no reason to bail out of it. Or he'll just stand in there and hold the football when he feels that guy right off his edge. And so instinctively, I'm really concerned about what he's feeling, what he's seeing, and hopefully these things will get corrected. I mean, that first interception for a pick six, you just think you're not going to be able to overcome those kind of things in the playoffs, and you almost weren't able to overcome them tonight. I mean, just giving the ball away for 7 points, but I continue to go back to saying this, that when you look at the overall scheme of what they want to do and how they're doing it, you know, he racks up big yards, but he's got to quit making these critical mistakes, and he's got to become more game aware of what and where he's at on the football field. I think that you know, I have been hard on him, and sometimes my point of reference, people say, well, Stretch, your point of reference is Aikman. Well, he has a gold jacket. Well, yeah, I get that. But when you're paying a guy $40 million and there's 2:01 on the clock, and it's first and goal from the 8 or 9, 10, whatever it was there, and he takes a sack, you just think, well, you've got to have more awareness than that. And so I think those are things that I am critical of. And then, you know, the timing of the interception last week when they were up 10, the timing of the interception this week to throw the pick six early in the game. And you can say, well, okay, great, he responds to adversity. And yeah, he does. But when you're in a playoff game and you're against evenly matched teams, I just think it's very hard to overcome that.
Right. There were some plays that he made, and that leads to also Stretch talking about the receivers. Now Gallup should have he did have a drop in the game, but I got to say the touchdown catch was a really nice one and a good throw by Dak on the run. Sometimes he does make some good plays out of the pocket, and of course he made the throw on the corner route. I think that was the CD, and CD had the nice little inside move to get the touchdown. First of all, CD continues to be by far the best receiver on this team. Second, Stretch, I wanted you to address, I mean, that's pretty – T.Y. Hilton has not been here long, and he got he drew a penalty that extended a drive because that was a fourth down play. I think it was 4th and 8, and he put a great move on. I think Slay had to hold him there coming out of the break, and so they got called for that. And then he had the 52-yard play on 3rd and 30. Stretch, that ended up being an enormous play in this game.
Yeah. Yeah, and what I liked was what they did inside of him. I don't know if you saw, but Turpin was inside, and they ran vertical right at the safety. Well, I liked what T.Y. said when he got even with Slay. He was leaving. The quarterback was heaving. Safety took a bad angle because Turpin was running vertical out of the slot. And obviously, you got to respect that speed. I couldn't believe that Slay kind of had his head in the backfield. We can sit here and go over that, but the bottom line is you can still see that Hilton can run, and anybody that watches the film and any defensive coordinators coming up are obviously going to fear and respect that speed. So I thought receivers-wise, you saw some really good things, like you mentioned, out of CD. I continue to see the receivers blocking well. Noah Brown, I mean, Gallup, the things he can do. This is going to be fun. And I do like that they're putting, you know, they're giving Turpin more leeway to do some things. They ran that little throwback pass to him, and you know it didn't work at that time. And you know, play calling is play calling, but I like that they're getting him involved in the game. I like the receivers. I thought the receivers did a hell of a job today. I give the receivers a B+. I like what they did.
All right, and tight ends, you kind of put them in that. I thought Schultz made some plays in the passing game.
Yeah, absolutely. I like what Ferguson's doing. Hendershot. I mean, McKeon. I mean, they've got 4 active tight ends, and they're comfortable with all of those guys in those positions. And so I think Schultz continues to have a good feel for Dak. He understands zones, where to sit it down. So yes, I'm including them in that receiver's grade. Matt, I'm going to go before we go running backs here. The one thing that I thought was very interesting and really telling in this football game was that the movement of Tyron Smith over to right tackle. Now, I can tell you that there were a couple times where they run counter, where Tyron was pulling, the guards pulling, and I'm telling you, it was really close to breaking big. I really like the fact that they're putting he and Martin over on that right side, and it's absolutely that package, or that ability to play those two guys 1-2, the package with bringing Peters in at tight end down there on the goal line where they just walked in. I think those are things that are absolutely going to give defensive coordinators fits. So I'm going to go back to what I said earlier in the podcast. I like that the Cowboys showed just a little dab of what they can do offensively, with putting all those tight ends, Jason Peters in there as a heavy look. I think that's a win-win. And here's the other thing. If they can stay healthy, this is going to be a big-time, I think, uplift for this offensive line, is to be able to play Tyron at that right tackle spot, because although I like Steele, I mean, Tyron Smith is going to be in the Hall of Fame. And boy, you look back at the game film, and they try to take a hard upfield move and then beat him inside. I mean, he just mashes them all the way down inside. There's no chance to counter with him. So I really, you look at the offensive line and people initially say, well, they didn't rush for many yards, but you know what? This is going to get better. They're going to get better, and they're going to get better. And I think this is what, for me, can kind of put them over the top offensively, is what they can do with that offensive line. I give the offensive line a B as well. Running backs, you get that same kind of effort week in, week out from the 1-2 punch of Pollard and Zeke. And so I give them a B too. So that's kind of that's my overall set of that. I will say this, Matt, that I think that when you look at the Cowboys right now, where they are right now, you think about the injuries that they've had defensively. I think this team is poised to make a run, but they cannot have these critical turnovers. It's just something that they've got to stop.
All right. I appreciate it, Stretch. Last thing I'll say to you, in addition to Merry Christmas, Miller Lite, buddy, it's the light beer, and sometimes light beers don't have taste. Miller Lite, full-bodied. It's got the taste, light on calories, but not taste. And while things have changed over the years, the one thing tried and true is Miller Lite's stellar taste. And Stretch, one more time, as we think about this last home game of the season with the Cowboys, have you ever gone out to the parking lot, maybe after the game, or back when you were coaching the Cowboys, scouting them? Would there ever be some Miller Lites kind of out that somebody might have in a cooler? Do you ever remember just after a game sort of needing one of those Miller Lites?
Oh, there's no question, and nothing goes down smoother than a little Miller Lite after you've been in there, and especially in the old Texas Stadium, and you had to have you one of those hand ringers in there, and you come out and get you one of those Miller Lites. So yeah, Mosley, I have had one, and I appreciate you calling me out and making me feel like I've got to tell the truth here on a Christmas Eve. Yeah, I've had one. Hell yeah. Well, let's just say Santa may have a few stocking stuffers for you from Miller Lite, and so that's kind of exciting, something to think about for in the morning stretch. To get Miller Lite delivered right to your door, visit MillerLite.com/Doomsday, or you can find it pretty much anywhere that sells beer. Celebrate responsibly. Miller Brewing Company, Milwaukee, Wisconsin. 96 calories
and 3.2 carbs per 12 ounces. And with that stretch, I bid you Merry Christmas and Happy New Year.
Same to you. Tell Werder, sorry to bother him tonight.
I'll deliver the message. He's standing by as we speak. That was Stretch Plays with Glenn Stretch Smith out from his family compound in far West Parker County. Good night. All right, there it was. And covering sort of all facets of this. And I didn't want to go back to, isn't it interesting that after Kelvin Joseph had to get benched in a game, and he was a second round pick who they had hoped to get big things from, and he certainly hasn't become that guy yet. On this night, Nashawn Wright and Deron Bland. Now Deron Bland's a rookie, 5th round pick. Ed, he's closing in on like a Cowboys rookie record. He now has 5 interceptions as a rookie, and let's not act like he's had a ton of reps this season. This is a pretty remarkable run that he's on. And Ed, these are not like, oh, this is happening in trash time or something like that. These are game-changing, contested interceptions that he's making. Big-time play by Deron Bland. And though they did allow a lot, especially to Devontae Smith, this secondary did step up and make some big plays when they had to.
Yeah, Deron Bland now has 5 interceptions. Isn't the Cowboy record for a rookie Everson Walls with 11? The
Cowboys rookie record is 7. I don't know if Everson did it.
Everson's team record is just 11. It wasn't his rookie season. Okay. But Deron Bland's 5th interception. Last year, Trayvon Diggs led the NFL in interceptions with 11. He's only got 3 this year, getting not thrown at quite as often, although they beat him early a couple times with A.J. Brown. He was flipping sides. And, I think you have to point that out too. When Dan Quinn decides that he's going to have Trayvon Diggs shadow match up with the other team's number 1 receiver, that's fine, but that creates problems for everybody else because now Deron Bland has to switch sides. Like he has to be able to play either side too. And Nashawn Wright has to be able to play both sides when they're doing that kind of thing. So that's the other issue that it creates. While Trayvon Diggs might be perfectly capable of playing both sides against the number 1 receiver, that also forces the other corners to do the same thing, and not everybody is well equipped to do that. Nashawn Wright, I thought he played outstanding. I thought he was a lot more physical, a lot more competitive than we've seen with Kelvin Joseph. That being said, I think you have to be concerned about the fact that the Cowboys, who led the NFL in sacks most of the year on defense, whose opponents lived in mortal fear of getting behind and having to throw the ball on 3rd down or playing from behind, have really thrown the ball without consequence the last 3 games. They have 1 sack in their last 12 quarters. 1 sack in their last 3 games. Micah Parsons in the first quarter last week against Lawrence. So I think the pass rush is a concern. I also think that they've kind of, because of maybe the injuries, losing, Jonathan Hankins, Anthony Brown at corner, Leighton Vander Esch most recently, they become really vulnerable on defense. I think they're not the shutdown defense they were early in the season. They're more like the defense they were last year where, hey, they'll give up a lot of yards and a lot of plays, but they're going to take the ball away from you. They're relying on turnovers again. And, they had 4 turnovers today. That's the 3rd game this year in which they've had at least 4 takeaways. That's the most in the NFL. Their 30 takeaways this year also lead the league. They led the NFL last year. The last team to lead the NFL in takeaways in back-to-back seasons, the Pittsburgh Steelers, steel curtain defense, 72-74. They did it 3 years in a row. But that's how long it's been since somebody's been this dominant taking the football away, and they converted it. They converted those turnovers today into 20 points. So half their total points came from the defense setting up the offense.
All right. Cowboys remember some of those defenses for sure. Jaron Kearse had a big play.
Two.
I thought, you're right. And that first interception, to make the play on the ball like he did, a contested play there. I thought that was a really nice play. And those, and the Eagles just had some handoff issues. One time the running back never got the ball. It then happened again. And for an offense that really moved the ball well, they did, giving it to the Cowboys kind of helped keep the Cowboys in the game. And I did have a funny conversation I was going to share with our people and you with Dante Fowler Jr. I asked him, I said, by the way, what'd you think of that Eagles quarterback sneak? I was like, that's pretty good. It's one of the better, most effective sweeps, quarterback sneak. And Fowler, he was kind of deadpanned. He's like, I know. He says, it may have been one of the greatest quarterback sneaks of all time. And he was, and I said, wait, where were you for that? And he said, I was on the sideline. He quickly,
I was no part of that.
He had no part in that.
Well,
but,
the Eagles scored 2 touchdowns on 4th down today. I mean, Nick Sirianni's an aggressive coach. Mike McCarthy's usually an aggressive coach, but Nick Sirianni, to me, in 4th down situations, it's almost like he's coaching a last place team that has nothing to play for. And instead he's coaching a first place team that's 13-1 and trying to win the division and the number 1 seed. And he's going for it on 4th down all the time. And I was a little surprised that Mike McCarthy didn't take that approach at the end of the 4th quarter today. I thought they had a chance to close them out, win on offense, which he tried to do last week in Jacksonville. Didn't work out. And instead he kicked the field goal and trusted the defense wouldn't give up a touchdown. And I mean, good Lord, Gardner Minshew's on your 19-yard line throwing balls in the end zone at the end of the game trying to win.
Yeah. And I think if you were going to question the Eagles at that point, they had been really burning the Cowboys on sideline routes, crossing routes. Devontae Smith was really good. A.J. Brown's obviously an excellent player. It was kind of interesting that they just needed, they needed 10 yards. And they kind of got down there, and I think they were moving it so well, they may have gotten a little aggressive. When it was okay to still keep throwing short, they could have gotten the first down. Yeah. They felt. And I
think the other mistake they made was they had a timeout when Gardner Minshew spiked the ball, so they wasted a play when they had a timeout. I mean, that was a mistake.
Yeah, they ran up and they did that. So some clock management issues
on both sides.
Ed, did you see the bank robbery celebration by Devontae? I mean, it's a very odd thing to do to the Salvation Army kettle, but I mean, you got to say it was funny. He kind of did it like a thief, and he lifted his leg like he was sneaking in there, and then he started handing, mock bags of money like he was getting it out of the kettle. So I thought it was kind of clever.
And brought some attention to the Salvation Army at Christmas time. Yeah.
Yes. And Jerry, I asked him what Jerry thought. He's like, I didn't see that. And then Jerry says something like, I'm sure I may have to spend a little more. I was thinking, no, Jerry, you're not going to get fined for what the Eagles were doing to your kettle. Jerry did say something, Ed, you might have seen the quote about stitches. He was worried about that early leak, and he thought he was going to, or switches. He said, I guess for Christmas you get switches and coal in your stocking, and he was worried he was going to get a bunch of switches. Sometimes he has a little country, Arkansas sayings that he likes. But so big things happen tonight. Close the book on OBJ for the year. The gift that keeps on giving is no longer, Ed, and OBJ. We might start it up in the off season, but OBJ will not be a Dallas Cowboy. And, T.Y. Hilton becomes a folk hero. He shows up, makes a huge play, makes 2 big plays, but 52-yard catch. So, Ed, quick turnaround. I don't know if you're going to have to turn around here and
I do.
I'm go going to Nashville.
I'll be in Nashville on Thursday night.
Wow. No rest for the weary. Thursday night battle. That'll be on the 29th. Yeah, 29th. And the Doomsday will have to do a quick turnaround. And we'll have to be ready to go for a Thursday night. What is that? What is Thursday now? Is that like an Amazon Prime type game? Is that
That is correct. Yes, Amazon Prime. And you talk about, getting your run defense tested. Well, that's pretty much all the Titans can do at this point. Plus, they're going to introduce the running quarterback to the equation as well. So it'll be an interesting challenge for Dan Quinn and his defense that's been decimated to a certain extent by injuries. Of course, you can't complain about how decimated your defense is when the other team's not playing their starting quarterback. And the Eagles, as I mentioned, didn't have Jalen Hurts today, and the Titans are not going to have Ryan Tannehill on Thursday night. But just a couple more things I wanted to say is we sign off here on this holiday edition. This win over the Eagles and Cowboys now will enter the postseason no worse than the 5th seed in the NFC, which means they likely go play at Tampa Bay in round 1, or maybe play at the Carolina Panthers. And they ran for over 300 yards today. They fired their coach during the season, and now Steve Wilkes has led them to the cusp of a division championship by winning as many games as your guy, Matt Rule, former Baylor coach, won there this year. So that's interesting. And I think the other thing, the Cowboys win their 11th game. They've now won 23 games. Mike McCarthy's won 23 games the past 2 years. That's the most in a 2-game span since 94-95. And they have 3 wins against teams that have 10 wins this season: Cincinnati, Minnesota, and Philadelphia.
Yeah, I like how you said Minnesota there. You kind of gave it a little accent. Minnesota. I did want to add, Ed, the Lakeside Roofing, as well as the Great Marable Homes. Lakeside Roofing, family-owned, full-service roofing company serving the Dallas-Fort Worth area with the highest quality roofing products paired with the highest quality workmanship. That is Lakeside Roofing Company, lakesideroofco.com, and on Instagram at Lakeside Roofing Co. Ed, great work by you this evening. It was fun getting to see you on Christmas Eve. Let's spend some time with our families, but it was fun spending time with our Doomsday family. And it's always fun to kind of see the clamoring of people out on Twitter. When are you guys going to release it? What time is it happening tonight? Somewhere in my thoughts, Ed, I thought, it's Christmas Eve. Do they really want to hear us? And invariably, they do. They do. They want to listen to us. We appreciate our Doomsday listeners, our subscribers. You can always subscribe on Apple. We're on Stitcher. We're on pretty much everywhere you can be on all the podcast platforms, and we appreciate everybody who has been a part of this. I want to wish everybody a Merry Christmas. Ed, did you want to wish anybody in particular a Merry Christmas?
Anybody in particular? Well, I'm home alone. My family's gone. Jill and Christy have gone back to Colorado to go spend the Christmas with Brian and Henry and Delilah. So I'm a little jealous of that, but I was a big advocate of that. I knew I was going to be home. I knew I was going to work this game and the Thursday night game. So I just wish my family that's all in Colorado happy holidays. This is me and my siblings. It's our first Christmas without either our mother, who died 10 years ago, or my father, who passed away 2 months ago. So this is our first Christmas without either of our parents, who were so magnificent in making, creating so much Christmas joy for us all the years that they were a part of it. So I'm thankful for all those memories.
Well, nicely said. And Ed, I don't know if you want this or not. I am willing to drive out there and hang out with you tonight.
Bring some lobster empanadas.
That's right. That's right. Those empanadas were fried pretty hard, so you didn't know exactly what was in there. But a strong effort from our folks. And the cheesesteaks came from the folks from Legacy, I believe it is. Oh, what a great job they did, the chef there. Ed, appreciate all your fine work and the quick turnaround for Thursday. Appreciate Mark Friedman doing a beautiful job this evening and left a family gathering to go be with us. And Frito continues to do yeoman's work. And sounds
like Frito used us to his advantage. Leaving the family gathering, I gotta go work. Sorry. Yeah. I'll be right back.
Oh, nobody loves their family like Frito, though. So he was able to hang in there and do a good job with that. And thanks to all our subscribers. For Ed Werder and Mark Friedman, I am Matt Mosley. Merry Christmas, and to all a good night.
My cat Rachel is the silliest cat I know. One time, she played inside a paper bag for 3 hours. What a mystery. But I'm glad her health isn't, thanks to the color-changing litter from Fresh Step Crystal's Health Monitoring Litter. This premium color-changing litter has pH-activated crystals that can help me detect potential illness early. That makes it easy for me to stay on top of her health and well-being. I may not understand all of Rachel's silly quirks, but I can keep up with the important things. Find Fresh Step Crystal's Health Monitoring Litter at a store near you. Fresh Step is a registered trademark of the Clorox Pet Products Company.
Start clean with Clorox, because Clorox delivers a powerful clean every time. Because messes happen. Because I got a charcoal mask. Great, because why would I put that on my face when I could drop it in my sink? This is what I get for multitasking. Ugh, why is charcoal so sticky?
Hello?
Hey, Janice. I am so sorry. I thought I was on mute. No, we don't need to reschedule. I'll just stay off camera. Ooh, yeah, that happens. So start clean with Clorox. Use Clorox products as directed.